Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving headfirst into the world of humanity fuck yeah stories. And trust me, this one is a doozy. We're talking about a situation so bizarre, so unexpected, and so utterly human that you won't believe what happened next. Buckle up, because you're in for a wild ride. Script. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving headfirst into the world of humanity fuck yeah stories. And trust me, this one is a doozy. We're talking about a situation so bizarre, so unexpected, and so utterly human that you won't believe what happened next. Buckle up, because you're in for a wild ride. Imagine a galaxy teeming with life, a universe of wonders. But our story begins on a distant planet, a world bathed in the ethereal glow of twin suns. This wasn't just any planet. It was the home of a civilization that had reached the pinnacle of technological and societal advancement. They were the Xylar, a species that had mastered interstellar travel, eradicated disease, and had seemingly exhausted all the challenges their world could offer. They lived in a state of comfortable stagnation, their existence a carefully orchestrated symphony of logic and efficiency. Their focus, you see, was on order, on predictability, on the elimination of anything that could disrupt their meticulously crafted reality. And then, from the swirling chaos of the cosmos, came a blip on their radar. A tiny, insignificant blue planet teeming with a chaotic, unpredictable species. Us, humanity. The Xylar, in their supreme arrogance, saw us as nothing more than a curiosity. A primitive species, ripe for observation, perhaps even eventual assimilation. They dispatched a delegation, a sleek, silver vessel designed to impress, to establish contact, and to begin the process of, well, control. They expected awe, they anticipated subservience, they were ready to bestow their wisdom upon the lesser beings. What they got instead? Let's just say the Xylar got a rude awakening. They were about to discover that sometimes the smallest package can hold the most explosive surprises. They were about to learn a lesson about the unyielding, unpredictable, and utterly unique nature of humanity. And their perfectly ordered world was about to be turned upside down. Get ready, because the story is just getting started. The story begins on a distant planet, a world dominated by a highly advanced yet somewhat complacent alien civilization. They had mastered interstellar travel, conquered disease, and were on the verge of achieving, well, they weren't quite sure what. Enter humanity. A small, seemingly insignificant species from a backwater planet. The aliens, in their arrogance, saw us as nothing more than a curiosity, primitive species to be studied and perhaps eventually absorbed. They sent a delegation, expecting to be greeted with awe and submission. What they got instead was utter chaos. Script. The initial contact, as you might imagine, was a complete and utter disaster. A perfect storm brewed from the clashing of cultures, the chasm of technological understanding, and let's be honest, a healthy dose of pure, unadulterated human chaos. The Xylar, masters of logic and rigid protocols, were utterly bewildered. Our unpredictable behavior, our penchant for spontaneous humor, our capacity for both breathtaking brilliance and utter idiocy, it was all too much. They tried to assert control, to dictate terms. They presented their advanced technology, expecting us to fall to our knees in admiration. They offered guidance, expecting compliance. But humanity, in its infinite capacity for adaptation and defiance, simply refused to play along. We poked, we prodded, we questioned everything. We saw their technological marvels not as instruments of power, but as puzzles to be solved, toys to be tinkered with. We quickly learned to exploit their weaknesses. Their reliance on logic made them predictable. Their rigid adherence to rules created loopholes. We used their own technology against them, sometimes in ways that would make even the most seasoned engineer raise an eyebrow. We jammed their communication systems with a cacophony of cat videos and rickrolls. We borrowed their advanced weaponry and used it to, well, let's just say, redecorate their flagship. The Xylar, accustomed to perfectly sterile environments, were horrified to find their pristine vessel now adorned with graffiti, questionable artwork, and a surprisingly resilient collection of human-made memes. They tried to threaten, to intimidate. But threats didn't work on a species that had stared down the barrel of nuclear war and emerged, somehow, still cracking jokes. Intimidation was useless against a people who had learned to laugh in the face of death, who found humor in the darkest corners of existence. The Xylar, so used to order, were slowly realizing that they had stumbled into a cosmic playground ruled by a species that didn't play by the rules. They had underestimated us. They had made a grave mistake. The initial contact was a disaster, a perfect storm of cultural misunderstandings, technological gaps, and sheer, unadulterated human ingenuity. The aliens, used to logic and predictability, were completely thrown by our unpredictable behavior, our humor, and our sheer audacity. They tried to dictate terms to establish control, but humanity, in its infinite capacity for adaptation and defiance, simply refused to play along. We used their own technology against them, exploited their weaknesses, and even managed to, well, let's just say we redecorated their flagship in a way they'll never forget. And then, just when the Xylar thought they had a handle on this chaotic species, came the tipping point. The moment when they truly understood that they had underestimated humanity. It wasn't a grand battle, a display of superior firepower, or a cunning technological breakthrough. No, the turning point wasn't found in the realm of conflict or science. It was something far more profound, far more human. It happened during a planetary crisis. A devastating meteor shower threatened to wipe out a small, isolated Xylar colony. The Xylar, in their logical detachment, had calculated the odds, determined the cost of rescue, and decided it was inefficient. The colony was deemed expendable. But humanity, witnessing the impending doom, saw something different. They saw lives at stake. They saw fear, desperation, and the desperate need for hope. And without hesitation, they acted. A small, hastily assembled human rescue fleet, cobbled together from repurposed civilian vessels and barely functional salvage technology, launched towards the doomed colony. They faced impossible odds. Their ships were slower, weaker, and vastly outmatched. But they pressed on, driven by something the Xylar couldn't comprehend: empathy. They navigated the treacherous meteor shower, shielding the Xylar colony with their own fragile vessels. They sacrificed their resources, their time, and even their lives to save beings they barely knew. They didn't ask for reward. They didn't seek recognition. They simply acted. They demonstrated a willingness to risk everything for the survival of others, a concept alien to the Xylar's cold, calculating worldview. This act of selflessness, this demonstration of the very best of humanity, shattered the Xylar's carefully constructed perceptions. It was a gesture of goodwill, a testament to the human spirit, a concept they, in their coldly logical world, had never encountered. It was a display of compassion, of a willingness to sacrifice for others. It was the ultimate paradox. A species that, despite its flaws and its capacity for destruction, was also capable of extraordinary kindness. The Xylar, witnessing this, were forced to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about us. Their rigid protocols, their calculated decisions, their very understanding of the universe was challenged by the simple, undeniable truth of human empathy. They had encountered a species that, despite its chaos, its unpredictability, and its flaws, was capable of the most profound acts of selflessness. And it was this act, this single moment of profound humanity, that would change everything. And then came the tipping point, the moment when the aliens realized they had seriously underestimated us. It wasn't a grand battle or a technological breakthrough. It was something far more subtle, far more human. It was a display of empathy, of compassion, of a willingness to sacrifice for others. It was a gesture of goodwill, a demonstration of the very best of humanity, a concept the aliens, in their coldly logical world, had never encountered. This act, this simple act of kindness, completely shattered their preconceived notions and forced them to reevaluate everything they thought they knew about us. Script. So, what happened next? Well, I won't spoil the ending entirely, but let's just say the Xylar were forced to reconsider their plans. The seeds of doubt, sown by our chaotic behavior and nurtured by our unexpected kindness, had blossomed into a full-blown existential crisis for the Xylar. Their initial arrogance crumbled, replaced by a grudging respect, and then, perhaps, something akin to awe. The human rescue fleet, against all odds, had succeeded. The Xylar colony was saved, and the survivors, bewildered and humbled, bore witness to the extraordinary actions of the primitive species. They saw humans, facing overwhelming danger, risk everything for beings they barely understood. They saw compassion where they expected cold calculation. They saw selflessness where they expected self-preservation. The initial response from the Xylar leadership was one of confusion. Their algorithms couldn't compute this act of illogical heroism. Their protocols offered no guidance on how to respond to such a display of pure, unadulterated kindness. They were forced to confront a fundamental flaw in their worldview: the belief that logic and efficiency were the ultimate measures of value. Slowly, however, the tide began to turn. The stories of the rescue, the bravery, the sacrifice, began to spread throughout the Xylar civilization. The rigid control of information, so central to their society, began to falter. Whispers of the humans became conversations. The primitive species, once a source of amusement and disdain, became a subject of intense study. The Xylar, in their newfound humility, initiated a period of intense observation. They studied our art, our music, our literature, our history. They delved into our complex emotional systems, our capacity for both immense cruelty and breathtaking beauty. They began to see the world through human eyes, to understand the value of empathy, the power of connection, the beauty of imperfection. The initial plans for assimilation and control were quietly shelved. The Xylar, once so sure of their superiority, realized that they had much to learn. They had underestimated us, not just in terms of our technology or our military prowess, but in the very essence of what it means to be alive. They learned a valuable lesson about the unpredictable, resilient, and utterly amazing nature of humanity. The story is a powerful reminder of our capacity for both destruction and creation, for both cruelty and kindness. It's a testament to the human spirit and a perfect example of why, in the grand scheme of the universe, humanity truly is, well, humanity, fuck yeah. So what happened next? Well, I won't spoil the ending entirely, but let's just say the aliens were forced to reconsider their plans. They learned a valuable lesson about the unpredictable, resilient, and utterly amazing nature of humanity. The story is a powerful reminder of our capacity for both destruction and creation, for both cruelty and kindness. It's a testament to the human spirit and a perfect example of why, in the grand scheme of the universe, humanity truly is, well, humanity. Fuck yeah. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe for more amazing stories. Script. So what happened next? Well, the Xylar's initial shock eventually gave way to a slow but undeniable shift. Their meticulously planned invasion, their arrogant assumptions, all began to unravel. The primitive humans, the ones they dismissed as a curiosity, had forced them to confront a truth they'd long ignored: the limitations of pure logic. The Xylar, after a period of intense internal debate, initiated a complete overhaul of their approach. Instead of dominance, they proposed collaboration. Instead of control, they offered, well, friendship, as best they could understand it. They extended an olive branch, or rather, a shimmering, technologically advanced equivalent. The humans, ever skeptical, took some convincing. Years of distrust, of cultural clashes, couldn't be erased overnight. But the Xylar, humbled and eager to learn, showed a willingness to adapt, to understand, to truly see humanity for what it was. They began to study us not just as a species to be conquered, but as a partner, a source of inspiration, and let's be honest, a constant source of bewilderment. The alliance that followed was chaotic, to say the least. The Xylar, used to perfect order, struggled to cope with our messy, unpredictable methods. Projects were often delayed by unexpected holidays, impromptu sing-alongs, and the occasional accidental exposure to human fast food. But amidst the chaos, something remarkable happened. The two species began to learn from each other. The Xylar introduced us to advanced technologies, helping us solve some of our most pressing problems. We, in turn, showed them the value of art, of emotion, of simply living. They learned to embrace the unpredictable, to find beauty in imperfection, and to appreciate the human capacity for both profound kindness and hilarious absurdity. Eventually, the Xylar, having learned the ways of humanity, fuck yeah, developed a new, far more ambitious project to spread this unique brand of chaos across the galaxy. And so together they set out on a new journey, not as conquerors, but as ambassadors of the human spirit, ready to share their newfound appreciation for the messy, wonderful, and utterly unpredictable nature of life. They understood that their perfectly ordered universe had been missing something vital, a touch of humanity, and the universe, as it turned out, desperately needed it.